Welcome to College Smart Radio, helping you understand the true cost of college and tackle the runaway costs of financing a college education. College Smart Radio is hosted by Beatrice Schultz, a certified financial planner and founder of West Face College Planning. Now, here's your host for College Smart Radio, Beatrice Schultz.
When thinking about paying for college, parents often worry most about what they don't know. College financial aid is a complicated topic with an alphabet soup of acronyms and jargon. They fear making a mistake that will hurt their child's future. On today's College Smart Radio program, I've invited a nationally recognized expert on student financial aid, scholarships, and student loans to join me on the show to discuss the most essential paying for college tips that every parent of a college-bound student has to know. Hi, I'm Beatrice Schultz. Welcome to our weekly show, College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of a college education. Our show is about bringing up-to-date and practical advice to parents who are or will be dealing with the cost of a college education for their kids. With many private colleges costing over $50,000 or even $60,000 a year, a UC costing close to $35,000, and a California State University running $25,000, parents need more help than ever. We bring you that help by sharing ways to pay less, tapping into financial aid, and prioritizing your source of funds to make sure you get through the most expensive years of your life. Based on my own education and experience, I share my insights with you week in and week out. And I bring in experts in many areas of the college process. From counselors, financial aid officers, student coaches, parents, and even students, you'll learn firsthand the ins and outs of how to pay for college and survive financially. In addition to our show, you can find lots of powerful information at our websites, collegesmartradio.com and westfacecollegeplanning.com. We have many articles with up-to-date information on navigating the waters of paying for the runaway costs of college. We have a monthly e-newsletter full of content about college planning. We also have posted a glossary of key terms used in the world of college planning. Terms like total cost of attendance, FAFSA, net price calculator, and so forth. And we have a link to our free community parent workshops and webinars that I host to teach parents about how to pay for college and how the financial aid system really works. Let's get started with today's show. Over the past year, I've hosted 60 or more different shows discussing the many steps in the saving and paying for college process and many strategies to help parents navigate the ever-increasing costs and confusing college landscape. On today's show, we're going to be bringing a lot of these topics together and discuss at a high level the most essential tips that every college-bound student and parent should include as part of their plan to manage their cost of college. My guest on today's College Smart Radio program is Mark Kantrowitz. He is currently the Senior Vice President and Publisher of Edvisors Network. Prior to joining Edvisors, Mark was founder and publisher of the well-known website finaid.org and the publisher of fastweb.com. If you follow the news related to the costs of college, you'll recognize Mark Kantrowitz's name because he's been quoted in more than 5,000 newspaper and magazine articles, plus he's written 2 best-selling books about scholarships and financial aid. Mark's joining us via phone today. Hi, Mark. I'm thrilled to have you as a guest on our show. Welcome to College Smart Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Well, I guess let's just dive right into it. You know, what's the first step or most important thing when you're thinking about all your advice about how to make sure that you pay or you don't pay too much for college?
Well, one of the best ways to save on college costs is to go to a less expensive college, such as an in-state public college or one of the 6 dozen or so no loans colleges. These are colleges that don't include loans in the financial aid package. Most colleges, the financial aid includes loans, which don't really reduce your costs.
Well, so I guess kind of what you're saying is if you can qualify for some of those colleges that'll meet all of everything that you can't afford yourself out of your pocket, that's a good model. And then also, I guess one less expensive option is to think about community college before you go to a 4-year college too.
Well, and I'd be a little bit cautious if your ultimate goal is to obtain a bachelor's degree. If you want to receive an associate's degree or certificate, a community college can be a great way of doing that, certainly at low cost. But if you intend to obtain a bachelor's degree, of those who start off at a community college, about 1/5 ultimately receive that bachelor's degree within 6 years, whereas those who start off at a 4-year institution, about 2/3 of them receive the bachelor's degree within 4 years. So that's a detour that may save you money, but may ultimately prevent you from reaching your destination.
Well, it's an interesting point. I think like anything, and I'm sure as our parents are listening in, every student's going to be a little different, but that whole point about how many kids are graduating in 4 years, how many kids are graduating from different institutions should be a big part of your college selection process, because you're more like if the statistics are better, then you're more likely to graduate in 4 years or get your degree as quickly as you can, which is going to save you money.
Yeah, and we don't know why students who start off at a community college are less likely to obtain a bachelor's degree within 6 years, and it varies from state to state. And states that have what are called articulation agreements, or strong agreements between the 2-year and 4-year colleges that say what the classes that the community college translates into at the 4-year institution, and you're more likely to obtain the bachelor's degree instead of a fifth, about a third. And it's unclear why the students don't persist through to the bachelor's degree. It could be that the financial difficulty that forced them to pursue a community college still persists 2 years later when it's time to go to a 4-year school and they still can't afford the 4-year school. Or it could be that you're in an environment where most of the students aren't planning on obtaining bachelor's degrees.
Yeah, for sure that could affect the statistics if they entered and didn't have that intention. So when we started the conversation, you said to think about going to a less expensive in-state school, and it's we live in California. There's many people outside of California that spend over $50,000 to go to Cal Berkeley, and if you live in California, you can go for $35,000. That's a great example of, I hear too many kids who are like, oh, it's kind of a college in my state. And I'm like, it's a great college in your state. That's a great way to save money and get a good education. What do you see as far as statistics on, does it matter where you get your degree from? Does it matter if it's a less known state school versus a well-known private school? I mean, what do you pick up out there in the industry?
Well, and first of all, California has a lot of great public colleges, and besides UC Berkeley, there's UCLA, UCSD, and you're getting
Absolutely.
Excellent quality education at a bargain price. The statistics suggest that if you go to one of the most elite institutions, you're going to get a slight boost in lifetime earnings as compared to some of the top public colleges. But you're paying a lot more. So payscale.com has a really nice tool on their website for looking at lifetime earnings versus your degree program and the school that you're attending. And it's always engineering and science programs that are at the top. If you sort the results based on total dollar return on investment, it'll be the Ivy League institutions, the MITs and Caltechs of the world that are at the top. If you sort by rate of return, it's the in-state public colleges that are at the top, because while you're getting just a little bit less in total lifetime earnings, you're putting in a lot less money to attend those colleges, and so the rate of return is much greater.
That's the pay scale. That pay scale report's really interesting. And in fact, I did do a show on it a couple months ago. So if anyone wants to, they can check out my archives and take a look at some of the links for that pay scale data. I think that's really powerful for people to understand, many of whom just want to make their kids happy and go to a school that the kids want to go to that may be not the least expensive one or the best cost-effective one for the family. So the obvious start to college, or making sure you don't spend too much, is that you have some money saved, if you can, or as much money as you can so you don't have to borrow it. But once you are kind of looking at that college selection, let's go through the idea of how you compare colleges best based on their net price. Let's talk a little bit about what net price means.
Okay, so there are three different ways of looking at college costs that you should be familiar with. One is the sticker price. That's the total cost of attendance, the tuition, fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, cost of a computer at some colleges, and miscellaneous personal expenses. That is a very big figure. Very few people pay that. They often pay a smaller discounted figure. The net price is the difference between that cost of attendance figure and just the gift aid. That's money that doesn't need to be repaid, like grants and scholarships. It's the amount of money you're going to have to pay from your savings, from your income, and from loans, past, present, and future income, in order to cover those college costs. The third figure is a net cost figure, which subtracts the entire financial aid package from the cost of attendance. I don't like that figure, even though it's the amount of the check that you have to write, because the financial aid package includes loans, and loans do not reduce college costs. In fact, they charge interest, as most do. They increase your costs.
Well, and I often use the analogy of if you buy a car and then you go into the financing department, you don't call it financial aid. You're spending the same amount on the car, but now you're going to pay a little bit more with interest. So it's,
right. And
it's
the whole dealership doesn't characterize the car as costing you nothing
exactly
because you're financing the full amount.
These crazy terms and analogy, or these terms that have kind of become acceptable, can be very confusing for families who've just hitting it for the first time.
Right. So the net price, the discounted sticker price, is the best way of comparing college costs. You still have to be careful with it because there are some things that colleges do that can affect the net price. For example, about half of all colleges practice front-loading of grants, which means the mix of grants and loans that you get as a freshman will be more tilted towards the grants, and whereas as a sophomore, junior, and senior, you'll be getting fewer grants proportionately. So your net price as a freshman will be lower than your net price as an upperclassman. And you need to understand whether or not the college practices front-loading of grants and to what extent, so that you can look at the cost of the four-year college education as opposed to just the first-year cost. A second caveat has to do if you won a lot of private scholarships.
Hey, Mark, let's get back to that point as soon as we come back after the break. You're with us on College Smart Radio today, where my guest today is Mark Kantrowitz, and we're talking about some of the tips you need to know to spend the least amount of money you have to know for college. We'll be right back after a quick break on College Smart Radio.
For more information on today's topic, visit collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. College Smart Radio continues in moments on AM 1220 KDOW. Contact Beatrice Schultz at collegesmartradio.com or call 650-587-1559. Now back to College Smart Radio with your host Beatrice Schultz on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of college. I'm Beatrice Schultz. We all know that college is expensive and will most likely be some of the most costly years for a family. Understanding how to navigate the college costs is a smart thing to know. To help families be on this radio show, I host community workshops live and via webinar several times a month that explain the costs of various colleges, how the financial aid system works, and things to consider to prepare yourself for this tremendous expense. To learn more and reserve your seat, go to my website at collegesmartradio.com. If you've just joined us, I've been talking with my guest, Mark Kantrowitz, about the different ways to figure out how to not pay more than you need to for college. And we were talking about the concept of a net price, which would be how much the college will charge you to go to college, which may be different than the sticker price. When I cut you off, Mark, we were talking a little bit about, you were talking about different, how different colleges work, specifically the fact that some practice what you would call front loading, which is have more grants in the first year and less in later years. Can you just tell me how a family would even know whether the college practices front loading?
Well, one method would be to simply ask the college financial aid administrator, do you practice front loading of grants? If they hem and haw and say it depends on the family's financial circumstances, I know what front-loading means.
Yeah.
They probably do. There are two techniques that you can use to get an independent opinion as to whether the college practices front-loading of grants. One is to use a tool like College Navigator on the U.S. Department of Education's website, where they have information about the financial aid received by first-year students and by all undergraduate students. And it's broken down into grants. And if you see a significantly different percentage receiving grants for freshmen versus all undergraduates, or the average amount is significantly lower for all undergraduate students, that's a sign that the college may practice front-loading of grants. Another technique that is often quite effective is to simply ask a bunch of upperclassmen how did their grants as seniors or juniors compare to their grants as freshmen. And they will know if there was a big difference.
And we didn't talk specifically about how to determine this net price, but every website has, or a little bit, they have a net price calculator that you can use as a family or parent or student to go on to enter your information to get an estimate of what you expect they're going to offer you.
Right, and it's important to realize that's a ballpark estimate. It's not very accurate. The calculators vary in terms of the data that they use. Some of them use 2-year-old data on the financial aid and college costs. Some of them use current data. So you can't really compare the net price at one college with the net price at another. They're not yet that accurate. Rather, you can tell whether or not that college is inside or outside the ballpark of college affordability. Is it something that you should consider? But you can't tell the difference between home plate and center field.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Let's talk a little bit about some of the important tips that families should know, especially as we're now getting closer to having kids in high school and starting to plan for that first year, or really you want to be planning at least a year ahead of time for your student to go to college. I mean, the first thing is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid.
Right. So you want to file the FAFSA, which is done online at FAFSA, FAFSA.ed.gov. You want to file it as soon as possible after January 1st because several states are on a first-come, first-served basis or have very early deadlines. And Connecticut, for example, has a February deadline.
California's deadline is usually March 1st or the first couple of days in March.
Which is still pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
don't want to wait until you file your federal income tax return or have been admitted to the college. You need to get it in as soon as possible. And also some colleges are on a first-come, first-served basis. What you want to do is estimate it based on your last pay stub of the year, your W-2 and 1099 statements if you have them, and you'll have an opportunity later after you file your federal income tax return to correct and update that information. There's even a tool called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool, which will copy the information, and it takes a week or two after you file your federal income tax return electronically for the data to become available. But if you use that tool to copy the information from your federal income tax return into the FAFSA, your FAFSA will be much less likely to be selected for verification, which is kind of like an audit, though not really.
Right. So there's no reason not to use it. Of course, you want to check your numbers to make sure the valid numbers get uploaded, but I don't hear examples of wrong numbers being uploaded. I don't know if you have any examples of the data retrieval tool not working for any families.
No, the data retrieval tool works quite well, and it improves the accuracy of the numbers on the FAFSA.
So the FAFSA will tell you what government aid may be available, and it's also used by colleges to determine what they may offer you for a grant. What's your opinion for families as far as getting more money like private scholarships?
Okay, well, the first thing is many families wait until the last minute to try to figure out how to pay for college. And by the spring of the senior year in high school, you've missed half the deadlines during the senior year alone. You want to start searching for scholarships as soon as possible. And there are scholarships you can even win in elementary school. National Geography B, National Spelling B. Jif Peanut Butter has a $25,000 scholarship for making a peanut butter sandwich. There's Doodle for Google, which has a junior division where you can win money for college. There are a lot of really good scholarships available for younger students as well. And it doesn't stop with your senior year in high school. There are scholarships you can apply for when you're already in college. The key is you want to first use a free scholarship matching tool. I mean, if you have to pay money to get money, whether it's spending more than the postage stamp to apply for a scholarship or to get information about scholarships, it's probably a scam. So you want to focus on the free services.
Yeah, definitely do not pay for the scholarship services. It's great advice.
Right. So I used to be publisher of FastWeb, which is a free scholarship matching service. I'm now publisher of Advisors, which has a free scholarship matching service called StudentScholarshipSearch.com. I'd suggest searching 2 of the free tools. That way you can be certain that you've got most of the awards for which you're eligible. And finding the scholarships isn't going to be the big source of work. It's going to be applying for them. And the sooner you get started, the fewer deadlines you'll miss.
And from what I understand, there are more and more, we're seeing more and more local scholarships available. A lot of these charity groups also to talk to your employer or to talk to the local community, basically make sure that you qualify for those scholarships. But it's a lot of money it can be a lot of money, even if it's a $500 scholarship, when you think that a lot of kids aren't working, they don't have summer jobs, or maybe they're getting $10 an hour. That's 50 hours worth of work that would equate a $500 scholarship.
And if you have a 1 in 10 chance of winning a scholarship and it's $500, then your expected value is $50. I don't know of any student who earns, a high school student who earns $50 for an hour's worth of work. So you apply for 10 of these scholarships, you might win one and get, so that's 10 hours for $500. And that's a pretty good deal.
And that probably is the amount of time it would take, because once you apply for one scholarship, you've done a lot of work that can often prep you, and a couple of essays could get you into a lot more than 1 or 2 scholarships.
Right. Well, once you've written your first half dozen scholarship applications, you find you're able to reuse the existing essays, so it doesn't take all that much time for each subsequent scholarship application. And these are often easier to win because they're less competitive. Students don't like essay competitions. They don't like small awards. But that money adds up, and it gives you practice for your college admissions applications.
Yeah, that is very valuable also. So you're going to apply for the FAFSA to make sure that if you qualify for any government aid, if you do apply to a private school, some of the private schools might also have you apply to complete the CSS profile. Apply for private scholarships to get some more money or free money. Many families still expect that they're going to have to borrow some money in the process. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the responsibility of borrowing money.
Right, so there are 2 main types of federal education loans. There are student loans like the Stafford loan and the Perkins loan, and then there are parent loans like the Parent Plus loan. The debt that the student is borrowing, you should try to keep it in sync with their income after graduation. So your total student loan debt at graduation should be less than your annual starting salary, and ideally a lot less. So long as your total debt is less than your annual income, you'll be able to pay back those student loans in 10 years or less. If your debt exceeds your annual income, you're going to struggle to make those loan payments, and you'll need an alternate repayment plan like income-based repayment, extended repayment, or the new pay-as-you-earn repayment plan. And those plans stretch out your repayment term to 20, 25, or even 30 years, which means you're still going to be paying back your own student loans when your children enroll in college. That's not an ideal situation. And a similar rule applies to the parents. Don't borrow more for all of your children than you can afford to pay back in 10 years or by the time you retire, whichever comes first. So if you're earning $50,000 a year, you should borrow no more than $50,000 total in cumulative Parent Plus loans. If you're earning $100,000, $100,000 is kind of the absolute limit.
Those are great rules for the parents also. I do have parents who come in and are looking to borrow money for their kids, and they are still paying off their student loans today. And we know that 30, 40 years ago, college was not as expensive as it is today. So I think this picture is going to look a lot worse in 30 years from now with too many of these kids if they didn't keep their debt in sync with their income.
A third of recent college graduates have enough student loan debt that they could qualify for a 20-year or longer repayment term.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that they are, but that means that 20 years from now, maybe as many as a third of the students are going to be that much more burdened with debt for their college education because their parents won't have saved, and the parents will be less willing to borrow.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today on College Smart Radio. I've just been talking to Mark Kantrowitz about the tips for saving money for college, and all of the websites that we've discussed, as well as the Advisors website, will be available on my College Smart Radio website. That wraps up another weekly show of College Smart Radio. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to manage the runaway costs of college. You can hear us each week on KDOW 1220 AM Saturdays at 3 p.m. This is Beatrice Schultz. Thanks for tuning in to College Smart Radio. We look forward to sharing more helpful information with you next week.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with certified financial planner Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. And join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.